inheriting a 39-year-old parrot while 8 months pregnant. I made a post a few months ago explaining that my husband's grandfather had passed away, leaving a 39-year-old hello-headed Amazon who needed a home, and that despite being 8 months pregnant with our first child and having no experience with birds, we had decided to step up and be the family members who brought him home. I just wanted to update you all and say that things are going wonderfully here. We are over the moon with a healthy baby boy and a happy middle-aged bird. Sydney was transported to our home by my in-laws about a month before the baby was born. We tried to spend as much time with him as possible so we could get to know each other and learn about his likes and dislikes. We learned that he can fly and that he is essentially feral. It seems that my husband's grandparents were very hands-off with him, and he doesn't have any training. He doesn't know step up, which is the major issue. I had these grand plans of taking Sid to the vet to get him a checkup once he got here, but realized pretty quickly that it was more important for me to establish trust with him than freak him out even further and shove him into a carrier to be taken to the vet against his will. So, we nixed the vet appointment. We read to him, we sang to him, more on that later, and we tried to see which foods he liked best. He and I bonded right away. He makes kissing noises at me, gets all excited when I walk into the room, and despite not knowing step up, will hold my hand, grasp one of my fingers in his dinosaur feet. He likes and respects my husband, but he's really only got eyes for me. He also loves our house rabbits and climbs down from the top of his cage to check them out when they come into the room. All in all, he settled in very nicely. The day the baby was born was chaotic, and we left the house in a rush, but made sure that Sydney was safely back in his cage. The neighbors came in and fed him and sat with him for a little while during the 3 days we were gone. I felt awful he was cooped up for those few days. While I was in labor, I kept telling my husband that I wanted to go home because I missed Sid and the buns so much. Once the baby had arrived, I was chomping at the bit to get back home so we could start adjusting to reality and let Sydney out of his cage. Bringing baby home and letting Sydney meet him was magical. I had butterflies and was so nervous, but holding our little boy in my arms, we let Sydney observe him, and remembering how perfectly it went makes me all emotional. Sydney was so happy to see us, and when he saw the baby, he fanned his tail feather really big and did his little happy wings dance and over again asked the baby, "Hi, how are you?" We had practiced carried around a doll for that month, preceding the birth, so I do think that helped a lot. And so, we settled into life as a family of 3 humans, 3 bunnies, and 1 bird. There has definitely been a learning curve for us as far as taking care of Sydney. He's a picky eater, preferring junk food, and it has taken months for us to get him to eat pellets as opposed to all seeds. His nails started to get super long, and we weren't brave enough to try to trim them ourselves, so we bought a new scratchy perch in the hopes he would wear them down on that. Turns out he is scared of the perch, but I have noticed his nails are looking much better, so I think he has started using it. I think we want more for Sydney than he even realizes is possible, you know? I'd love to get a play stand for him so he can hang out in other rooms at will with us, but he's just happy being in and on his cage. Who am I to force him into something he doesn't want? Even if I feel like it would make his life fuller and happier, we'll keep working on step up, so maybe someday we can meet that goal. My son, now 4 months old, loves Uncle Sydney. I take him into the room Sydney is in the mornings, and before we put him down for bed to say good morning and good night. I hold him a reasonable distance from the cage, and no matter what, Sid always comes out of his cage to see Baby. Baby smiles so big and gets so wiggly and makes happy gurgling baby noises at Sydney. And Sydney, in turn, dances and sings and tries to hold my hand and makes kissing noises and, my favorite of all, calls the baby a pretty bird. Baby has started flailing more around Sydney, so I'm being really careful about how these two interact and trying to, even at this young age, talk about gentle touches, really working on this with the rabbits, and respecting Uncle Sydney's authority. There is a baby gate barring Sydney's room, so once Baby is mobile, we're hoping that will keep everyone safe. Sydney lived in a house that loved opera music and jazz music, But it turns out he is a pop girly through and through. He loves to dance and sing to pop music, and his favorite song is Chappell Roan's Hot to Go, and I'll do the dance for him and the baby when we have a little dance party. We hung up a disco ball in his room for party vibes. Lol. One funny anecdote. One night, my husband had to rush to take his mom to the ER, which left me home to do bedtime with the baby, bunnies, and birds. I tried a few times to ask Sid to get into his cage for bed, but he was not having it and would not cooperate. I kept bustling around the house doing other things and popping into Sydney's room to try again, but he would not cooperate. Finally, after the baby was finally asleep, the bunnies were settled in for the night, and the house was locked up. I came into Sydney's room, crying from sheer exhaustion and frustration, literally begging him to get into his cage because I just wanted to put myself to bed. He saw me crying, literally said, "Uh-oh," and got into the cage. I could not make this story up. His reaction just made me stop crying and laugh. I'm so honored that we got to inherit Sydney. He brings so much joy to our lives, and I think he is a lot happier with us. I have struggled a lot with my self-esteem my whole life, but becoming a mom and becoming a bird owner have really helped me feel like I have a place in this world, and people who depend upon me and love me unconditionally. Lol, my husband too. Nothing makes my day better than that little disco chicken offering me his dinosaur claw to hold. Sydney's birthday is around the corner, and we're planning on celebrating. We've asked my in-laws to ask the aunts and uncles if they'd like to come down to see Sydney, as they are his siblings. Any advice on how to make a parrot birthday cake would be appreciated.